Most people know the stories of Moses, David, or Jesus, but what about the women whose courage, wisdom, and faith shaped God's plan in ways most of us never hear? These are women whose names are barely mentioned, yet their impact was monumental. Today, we're uncovering the forgotten women of the Bible heroes, whose stories are full of lessons, inspiration, and power. By the end of this video, you'll see how God can use anyone, even those overlooked, to accomplish extraordinary things. The Bible is full of stories of faith, courage, and obedience, but not every hero gets a spotlight. Many women played pivotal roles in God's plan, leading armies, delivering messages, guiding kings, and shaping the early church. These women remind us that God's ways are often mysterious, working through the quiet, the unexpected, and sometimes the forgotten. Let's start with Deborah. She was not just a prophetess, she was a judge, a leader of Israel, and a military strategist. In Judges chapter 4, we see her calling Barak to lead an army against Sisera, the commander of the Canaanite army. What makes her story so incredible is that God used a woman in a time when society rarely recognized female leadership. When Barak hesitated, Deborah didn't back down. She went with him, showing unwavering faith. She reminded Israel that obedience and faith are stronger than fear and tradition. The lesson here is powerful. Courage and leadership are not defined by gender. They are defined by faith and a willingness to follow God's call. Next, we have Huldah, the prophetess, who changed a nation. During King Josiah's reign, a long lost scroll, the Book of the Law, was discovered in the temple. The king, deeply troubled by its words, sent his highest officials not to the male prophets of the time, but to Huldah. She confirmed God's message of judgment for Israel's disobedience, but also offered a word of hope for Josiah's repentant heart. Her prophecy sparked one of the greatest spiritual revivals in Israel's history. Huldah's influence shows that wisdom and obedience can transform nations, even from behind the scenes. Her courage in delivering God's truth shaped Israel's spiritual future. God can use quiet, humble leaders to accomplish monumental things. Now for a story of unexpected courage, Jael. She was a woman living in a tent in the wilderness, seemingly ordinary, but her actions changed the course of history. When the enemy commander Sisera fled from the battle Deborah had orchestrated, he sought refuge in Jael's tent, trusting in a perceived alliance. It fell asleep, but Jael, recognizing her unique position, took a tent peg and courageously killed him, securing Israel's victory. Her story, found in Judges chapter 4, teaches us that God can work through unexpected people in unexpected ways. Ordinary circumstances do not limit God's power. Jael shows that decisive action and courage, even in what seems like a small role, can change history. Of course, we must talk about Esther, the queen who saved a nation. As a young Jewish woman in Persia, she won the king's favor and became queen, all while keeping her heritage a secret. But when a royal decree was issued to annihilate her people, her cousin Mordecai challenged her, saying she was put in her royal position for such a time as this. Esther bravely risked her life by approaching the king, uninvited, to plead for her people. Her faith, prayer, and wisdom led to a historic deliverance. She teaches us that true courage often involves stepping out of our comfort zone and into the unknown for God's purpose. God often calls ordinary people to extraordinary missions. Let's move into the New Testament, to Mary Magdalene. Her story is one of incredible redemption, devotion, and divine purpose. After being freed by Jesus, she became one of his most loyal followers, supporting his ministry and staying by his side even at the cross. But her most significant role came after his death. She was the first person to see the risen Jesus. In a time when a woman's testimony held little weight, God chose her to be the first witness of the resurrection and entrusted her with the most important news in history: to go and tell the disciples he is risen. Her story shows that your past doesn't define your future impact. God uses the faithful, even those who serve quietly, to deliver world-changing messages. Finally, let's look at Phoebe, a servant leader of the early church. In Romans chapter 16, the Apostle Paul introduces her as a deacon and a benefactor to many, including himself. He entrusted her with one of his most important letters, the Epistle to the Romans, to deliver to the church in Rome. This wasn't just a mail carrier role. She was likely the one who read and explained its profound theology to the Roman believers. Phoebe exemplifies quiet leadership, service, and dedication. She reminds us that making an impact doesn't always require a public stage. Faithfulness and service, even behind the scenes, can influence countless lives for eternity. So what can we learn from these incredible women? Their stories teach us that courage comes in many forms, from the battlefield to the quiet of a tent. They show us that faith and obedience can shape nations and redirect history. Most importantly, they reveal that God often works through the overlooked, the underestimated, and the forgotten. Ordinary people are God's chosen vessels for extraordinary purposes. Their lives remind us that God's plan is bigger than what we can see. No role is too small, no voice too quiet. Your faith and your courage can leave a lasting mark on the world. The Bible is full of these unsung heroes, whose stories are alive with lessons for us today. I encourage you to stand in faith, be courageous in your own circumstances, and allow God to use you in ways you might never have imagined. If this video inspired you, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share it with others. Let's help more people discover the incredible women God used to shape His eternal plan. Thanks for watching.